The wind howled against the windows as he grabbed his suitcase, ignoring the frail voice calling from behind. His footsteps echoed through the quiet house, each step pulling him further away from the life he was leaving behind. He didn't look back, not even when he heard the weak cough from the bedroom. His wife was sick. Everyone knew it. But he didn't care. She had been battling cancer for months, and it drained the life out of her. Once, she had been full of energy, laughter, and beauty. Now, she was a shell of the woman he had married, thin, fragile, barely strong enough to stand without help. He had spent years trapped in a life he no longer wanted. The hospital visits, the endless waiting rooms, the quiet, pitiful glances from doctors, it was suffocating. He was tired of it. Tired of pretending to be the perfect husband, tired of the obligations that tied him down. Now, he had a choice. And he had made it. A sleek black car waited outside. Inside, his lover sat in the driver's seat, her lips curling into a knowing smile as she adjusted the mirror. She was everything his wife wasn't anymore, young, vibrant, untouched by illness. With her, he could finally live the life he had always wanted. As he approached the car, he heard her voice one last time. Weak. Barely above a whisper. Please, don't leave me. He froze for a moment, gripping the handle of the car door. But the hesitation lasted only a second. He slid into the passenger seat without a word, shutting the door behind him. The sound was final, like the closing of a book. The engine roared to life, and as the car sped off, he glanced in the rearview mirror. She stood in the doorway, one hand clutching the frame for support. Her thin nightgown billowed in the wind. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just watched him go. And then, just like that, she turned away and disappeared into the house. Years later. The expensive suit fit him perfectly. He adjusted the cufflinks as he sat in the private office of a high-end law firm, waiting for the inheritance meeting to begin. His lover sat beside him, now his wife, though time had worn away some of the excitement. The passion that once burned between them had dulled, replaced by the familiar boredom of everyday life. But none of that mattered now. What mattered was the money. His late wife had been wealthier than she ever let on, and today, he would finally claim what was rightfully his. It was ironic, really. She had been sick for so long, and yet she had outlived their divorce. But in the end, it worked in his favor. He would walk out of here a rich man. The door opened. A lawyer stepped inside, his face unreadable. Behind him, another woman followed, a familiar face, but one he hadn't seen in years. His wife's best friend. She took a seat across from him, her sharp eyes boring into his as she slid a sealed envelope onto the table. He frowned. What's this? The lawyer cleared his throat. Your late wife's final message to you. Something in his chest tightened. For the first time since walking out on her, he felt an emotion he didn't recognize. And as he reached for the envelope, he had no idea that his past was about to catch up with him in ways he never could have imagined. The man sat in his car outside the imposing law firm, gripping the letter in his hand. The neatly embossed words confirmed it, an inheritance meeting had been called in his late wife's name. He should have felt victorious, but a strange, uneasy feeling churned in his stomach. He hadn't thought about her in years. Not really. She had been a chapter he closed long ago, a burden he walked away from without hesitation. The memory of her frail body, standing in the doorway as he drove away, tried to surface, but he pushed it back. There was no point in dwelling on the past. His lover sat beside him, filing her nails with an air of impatience. Are we going in, or are you just going to sit here looking guilty? She said, her tone edged with irritation. I'm not guilty of anything, he snapped, straightening his suit. He had made the right choice all those years ago, hadn't he? With a deep breath, he stepped out of the car and walked into the building. The firm's interior was sterile, its air thick with the scent of polished wood and expensive cologne. The receptionist barely glanced at him before pointing him toward a conference room. As he entered, his heart lurched. He wasn't alone. Across the long, mahogany table sat his late wife's best friend. The woman's piercing eyes locked onto him, filled with quiet judgment. He hadn't seen her since the funeral. She hadn't spoken to him then, hadn't needed to. Her silence was enough. "Good afternoon," the lawyer said, his voice professional yet distant. "Thank you for coming. We have gathered today to execute the final will and testament of—" "I don't need the formalities," he interrupted, sliding into a chair. "Let's just get to the inheritance." The lawyer exchanged a glance with his wife's friend but proceeded. "Very well. As you know, your late wife amassed a considerable fortune before her passing. This meeting is to determine the distribution of her estate." His lover smirked, leaning forward. "And who gets what?" The lawyer ignored her. Instead, he opened a thick folder, his fingers gliding over the pages as he read. "The primary beneficiary of the estate," he paused, and the room seemed to hold its breath, "will not be determined until the outlined conditions are met." A cold shiver ran down the man's spine. "Conditions?" The lawyer nodded. "Your late wife left specific instructions regarding the inheritance. Before any assets can be claimed, certain requirements must be fulfilled." His lover scoffed. "That's ridiculous. It's his inheritance. Just sign the papers and transfer the money." The lawyer remained unfazed. "I suggest you listen carefully. The conditions are non-negotiable." Silence hung in the air. The man's stomach tightened. He had expected a simple process, a signature, a check, maybe some paperwork. Not this. Then, the lawyer reached for an envelope. It was old, the edges slightly worn, as if someone had carried it for years before finally deciding to deliver it. He slid it across the table. "This letter," the lawyer said, "was written by your wife before her passing. She instructed that you read it before we continue." The man stared at the envelope, his pulse quickening. He didn't want to touch it. He didn't want to hear her voice, even in writing. But something told him that from the moment he stepped into this room, there was no turning back. He reached for the letter. And as he opened it, his entire world began to shift. The lawyer's voice echoed through the silent room. "As per the will, the total inheritance amounts to—" The man leaned forward in anticipation. His lover's fingers tightened around his wrist, her nails digging into his skin. He barely noticed. The only thing on his mind was the fortune that awaited him. $20 million. His breath caught. 20 million? He had expected wealth, but this was beyond what he had imagined. His lover's smirk widened. "However," the lawyer continued, flipping to the next page, "there are conditions." The room tensed. The man frowned. Conditions? He had been certain he was the sole inheritor. His late wife had no children, no close family. He had assumed the money would be his without question. "What kind of conditions?" he asked, keeping his voice even. The lawyer glanced at him, then to the woman sitting across the table, his late wife's best friend. She hadn't spoken a word since the meeting began, but her cold, knowing gaze sent a chill down his spine. The lawyer cleared his throat and read aloud, "To my husband, if you are reading this, I am long gone. I imagine you expected an easy claim to my wealth, but life is not so simple, is it? You once made a choice, abandoning the woman who loved you for something fleeting. Now, I am giving you a choice in return." His hands clenched into fists. "This inheritance will not be handed over freely. If you want it, you must complete a series of tasks, each revealing something you once refused to see. Only after proving you have learned their lessons will the money be yours." His lover scoffed. This is ridiculous. What kind of game is she playing? The lawyer ignored her. If you refuse to participate, the entire inheritance will be donated to charity. The man's heartbeat quickened. Wait, charity, he repeated. You're telling me if I don't play along, the money goes to strangers? The lawyer nodded. His stomach twisted. This wasn't just a will. It was revenge. Crafted with the precision only his late wife could manage. The best friend finally spoke, her voice calm but sharp as a blade. She knew you wouldn't walk away from the money. That's why she left this for you. His lover turned to him. You're not seriously considering this, are you? He didn't respond. A sealed envelope was handed to him. The lawyer placed it before him like a ticking time bomb. This is from your wife. Read it before making a decision. He hesitated before tearing it open. Inside, the familiar handwriting sent a wave of unease through him. You walked away once. Let's see if you'll do it again. He swallowed hard. The first task was written below, the words cutting through him like a knife. Go back to the hospital. Face what you turned away from. Only then can you move forward. His pulse pounded in his ears. He had spent years avoiding that place, burying any trace of guilt beneath the comfort of his new life. Now, his past had come back, demanding to be seen. His lover scoffed again. This is a joke. Just say no. He didn't answer. Because deep down, something told him, he couldn't. The letter trembled in his hands as he read the words over and over again. His late wife had left him a task, a condition he had to fulfill before receiving even a single cent of her fortune. His heart pounded. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He had expected a simple transaction. Walk in, sign some papers, collect his inheritance, and walk out a rich man. Instead, he was being forced to confront the past, a past he had buried years ago. His lover, now his wife, leaned in, her perfectly manicured nails tapping impatiently against the table. This is ridiculous, she scoffed. Can't we just skip this nonsense and get to the real business? The lawyer didn't even glance at her. No. If he refuses, the inheritance is forfeit. A cold weight settled in his stomach. He had no choice. The first task was simple in words but crushing in reality. Visit the hospital where I fought for my life. His jaw clenched. He hadn't stepped foot in that place since the day he left her. He never looked back, never checked in, never even called to see how long she lasted after he walked away. Now, he was being dragged back. The hospital visit, the automatic doors slid open with a soft hiss, and the scent of antiseptic filled his nostrils. The place was too familiar, yet completely foreign at the same time. His shoes clicked against the polished floors as he approached the receptionist's desk. I need to check in. His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. The receptionist raised an eyebrow. Visiting hours are open. Who are you here to see? He hesitated. I'm here for, he exhaled sharply. She was a patient here. Years ago. The woman frowned. Name? He muttered it under his breath, ashamed. The receptionist's fingers tapped against the keyboard, scanning the records. Then, suddenly, her expression changed. You were her husband? His throat tightened. I was. Her face darkened. Wait here. A few moments later, a door swung open, and a doctor emerged, an older man with graying hair and tired eyes. He studied him for a long moment before speaking. I remember you, the doctor said flatly. A knot twisted in his stomach. Follow me. The hallway stretched endlessly as they walked. Every step felt heavier than the last. His wife had spent months in this place, clinging to life while he had been out living his new one. The doctor led him into a private room, one that hadn't been touched in years. It was preserved just as it had been when she was alive. His chest tightened. This was where she had spent her final moments. The doctor folded his arms. She was strong, you know. He swallowed hard, staring at the empty hospital bed. She never spoke badly of you, the doctor continued. Never blamed you. Even when she was in pain, even when the nurses would whisper about how you left her, she never let them say a bad word about you. His vision blurred. She still loved you. A sharp pain stabbed at his chest. No. He wouldn't feel guilty. He made his choice. He moved on. She also knew you wouldn't come back, the doctor said, watching him closely. But she prepared for that. His breath caught. What do you mean? The doctor reached into a drawer and pulled out a small, sealed envelope. She left this for you, he said, handing it over. On one condition. He clenched his jaw. What condition? The doctor's eyes hardened. That you read it right here, in the room where she died. His pulse roared in his ears. He wanted to walk away. He wanted to burn the letter and forget everything. But something deep inside him, something he didn't understand, kept him rooted to the spot. Slowly, with trembling fingers, he tore open the envelope and pulled out the letter. The handwriting was weak, shaky. He could almost hear her fragile voice speaking the words as he read, "If you're reading this, it means you finally came back. Even if it's too late." His breath caught. I never hated you. I never resented you. Even when you left, I still wanted you to be happy. His chest tightened. But happiness built on the suffering of others never lasts. One day, you'll understand that. He gritted his teeth, gripping the paper so tightly it nearly tore. This is your first test. If you walk away now, the inheritance is gone. But if you finish what I left behind, you'll learn what true wealth really is. His heart pounded. What did she mean by that? The doctor exhaled. This isn't just about money, is it? He shook his head. No. This was something else entirely. And for the first time since the day he left her standing in that doorway, he felt something he never expected. Regret. His hands trembled as he unfolded the letter. The delicate handwriting was instantly familiar, elegant, patient, filled with the warmth he once took for granted. His throat tightened as he read the words of a woman he abandoned, yet who somehow still had something to say to him, even from the grave. If you're reading this, it means you're finally willing to listen. It also means I'm gone. I wonder, do you feel relief? Do you feel free? Or do you feel something else? I knew about her. From the very beginning. The way you smiled differently. The way you stayed out later and later. The way your eyes no longer searched for mine. It hurt, of course. More than the disease eating away at me. But what hurt the most wasn't losing you, it was realizing you had already left me long before you walked out that door. I won't waste these words on anger. I am not writing this to punish you. I am writing this because, even after everything, I still want you to find peace. His vision blurred, the words twisting as his breath hitched. He gripped the paper, his knuckles turning white. She knew. She had always known. And yet, she had never confronted him, never screamed, never begged him to stay. She had simply accepted it. The room around him faded. He wasn't in a lawyer's office anymore. He was back in their old home, standing at the doorway, hearing her frail voice calling his name as he stepped into his car, never once looking back. The letter continued. You once told me that love should never be a cage. That you wanted to live freely, without guilt, without obligation. I understand that now. Love is not meant to chain us to suffering. But love is also not meant to be discarded like something replaceable. I spent my final days trying to understand if I had failed you. If I had been too weak, too much of a burden, too unlovable. But in the end, I realized something important. The way you treated me was never about me. It was about you. And that's why I am giving you a chance. A chance to stop running. A chance to face the parts of yourself you've avoided for so long. This inheritance was never meant to be a prize. It is a path. One that will force you to confront your choices, your regrets, and your past. You can walk away now, if you wish. Take whatever wealth you still have and live the life you chose. Or, you can finish this journey. And maybe, just maybe, you'll understand why I left these tasks for you in the first place. A deep silence filled the room as he finished reading. His chest felt heavy, his pulse erratic. For the first time in years, his past wasn't just a shadow lurking in his mind, it was alive, breathing, suffocating him. His lover rolled her eyes. What a manipulative letter. She's trying to make you feel guilty, trying to control you from the grave. Just ignore it, take what you can, and let's get out of here. But he barely heard her. His wife's final words echoed in his mind, cutting deeper than any insult ever could. You can walk away now, if you wish. His fingers curled around the paper. No. He couldn't walk away. Not anymore. The lawyer cleared his throat, breaking the silence. There is a second task, he said. And I assume you're ready to hear it. He took a deep breath. For the first time in his life, he wasn't sure what he wanted. And yet, somehow, he knew he had to see this through. The orphanage was quiet, yet filled with an unshakable warmth. Children's laughter echoed from the other room, but as the man stepped through the front doors, all he could feel was the weight pressing on his chest. A woman in her late 50s greeted him. Her gaze was filled with a knowing sadness. You must be him. He stiffened. Him? She nodded. The husband she spoke about before she passed. His stomach twisted. His late wife had been here. She had spent her final days at this orphanage, pouring her remaining strength into caring for these children, children abandoned by the world, just as she had been abandoned by him. She left everything to this place, the woman continued. Her last wish was for these children to have a future, even if she wouldn't be here to see it. His throat tightened. Why? The woman gave him a long look. Because she believed that love shouldn't be wasted. She knew pain better than most, but she never let it make her bitter. Even after what you did. Her words stung like a slap. He tried to breathe, but the air felt thick. His wife had spent her last moments not cursing him, not seeking revenge, but helping others. Giving everything away. Come with me, the woman said, leading him down a hallway. His lover trailed behind, arms crossed, barely containing her irritation. This is a waste of time, she whispered. She's just trying to make you feel guilty. But guilt had already taken root in his heart. At the end of the hallway, the woman stopped in front of a door. She knocked once before pushing it open. Inside, a boy sat on the floor, flipping through the pages of an old, worn-out book. He couldn't have been older than 10. The woman looked at the man and said quietly, she wanted you to meet him. Confused, he took a step inside. The boy glanced up, his dark eyes studying him with curiosity. Something about him felt familiar. What's your name? The man asked hesitantly. The boy hesitated before replying, my name doesn't matter. The woman sighed. Your wife took care of him personally before she passed. She made sure he would never feel alone. The man swallowed hard. Why him? Out of all the children here, why did she choose him? The woman's lips pressed together. Because he's yours. The air left his lungs. His world tilted. He turned sharply to the woman, but her expression held no amusement, no deception. His heart pounded as he looked back at the boy, his son. This isn't possible, he stammered. I would have known, she never told you. His mind raced, memories flashing back. The timing, the way she had grown distant before he left, the quiet sadness in her eyes. He had been too blinded by selfishness to see it. She had been carrying his child, and he had walked away. His lover let out a bitter laugh. Oh, this is rich. A surprise son. How convenient. The woman's eyes hardened. She didn't tell him because she didn't want anything from him. She raised him alone, gave him love, and when she couldn't anymore, she made sure he was safe. The man took an unsteady breath, his gaze locked on the boy. His son. A piece of him he never knew existed. His wife's last wish wasn't about money. It was about him facing himself. His lover scoffed. Let's go. This whole thing is just manipulation. You don't owe anyone anything. But for the first time in his life, he wasn't so sure. He looked back at the boy, so small, so unaware of how much he had lost. A piece of paper sat on the bedside table, folded neatly. His fingers trembled as he picked it up. His wife's handwriting. If you walk away from him the way you walked away from me, then you truly have learned nothing. The boy met his gaze, and something unspoken passed between them. A choice stood before him. For the first time, he wasn't sure which path to take. The dim lights of the orphanage flickered as he stepped inside, his polished shoes clicking against the worn-out tiles. The air smelled of old wood and faded memories. Children's laughter echoed through the halls, yet there was a quiet sadness lingering beneath it. This was the final test. His late wife had left him a choice, one that would determine if he was worthy of the inheritance. The lawyer's voice echoed in his mind, the last piece of her legacy is here. If you leave now, you walk away with nothing. He clenched his fists. For years, he had ignored the weight of his past. He had abandoned his wife when she needed him most. Now, he was being forced to confront the truth. His new wife, the woman he had chosen over his dying spouse, stood beside him, clearly irritated. She had been furious when she learned about this final condition. This is ridiculous, she hissed under her breath. What does an orphanage have to do with anything? Just take the money and let's leave. But something inside him told him this was more than just a formality. He had to see it through. A nun, dressed in a modest gray habit, approached with a warm yet knowing smile. You must be him, she said softly. He swallowed hard. Him? She nodded. The man she talked about. The man she waited for. His breath caught. Waited for? The nun motioned for him to follow. He hesitated, then took a slow step forward, his wife reluctantly trailing behind. They walked down a quiet hallway lined with faded paintings and worn-out doors. The nun led them into a small playroom, where a handful of children sat, playing with old toys. And then, his world stopped. In the center of the room, sitting quietly by a window, was a boy. A boy who looked exactly like him. The impossible truth the room spun. He felt his stomach lurch as his heart slammed against his ribs. His breath came in shallow gasps. No. This wasn't possible. The boy, who couldn't be older than 10, had the same eyes as him, the same sharp jawline, the same unruly hair. He staggered back, his legs barely able to hold him up. His wife grabbed his arm, confusion turning to anger. Who is that? She snapped. The nun's face softened. Your late wife's final secret. His mind raced. He had left her. Years ago. She had been dying. And yet, here stood a child, his child. A child he never knew existed. The final letter. The nun handed him one last letter, the final message from his late wife. His hands shook as he tore it open. I never told you, because I knew you wouldn't stay. His throat tightened. But I didn't want our child to grow up knowing he was abandoned. So I let you go, and I prepared for him to have a better life. His vision blurred. She had protected him. Protected their son from the truth. This is your choice. His hands clenched the paper. Walk away, and you'll get your inheritance. Take the money, take your new life, and never look back. His pulse pounded. Or, step forward. Take responsibility. Be the father you never knew you could be. He felt like he was drowning. This wasn't supposed to happen. He came here for money, not for this. His lover grabbed his arm. You're not seriously considering this, she hissed. This isn't our problem. His eyes remained locked on the boy. His son. The child he had never met. The child who had waited for him. A decision that changes everything. He turned to his wife, the woman he had chosen after abandoning his sick, dying spouse. Her face was twisted with anger. And in that moment, he saw the truth. She never loved him. She only loved what he could give her. Her greed. Her selfishness. His own reflection. For years, he had been blind to the consequences of his actions. He had walked away from responsibility, chasing his own desires. And now, he had one last chance to make things right. The lawyer's words echoed in his mind, this is the final test. His son's eyes met his. And in them, he saw everything he had lost. A deep, aching pain spread through his chest. He turned to the nun, voice shaking. What do I have to do? Her smile was warm. Just stay. He stood in front of the last location written in the will, a quiet, unassuming building with faded walls and a modest sign. The orphanage. The place his wife had secretly poured her heart into. The place where she had spent her final days, not wallowing in self-pity, but giving whatever love she had left to those who had no one. His feet felt heavier with every step inside. The air smelled of old books and warm food, filled with the sound of laughter and quiet conversations. He had expected sadness, but instead, he felt warmth. The orphanage director, a kind-eyed woman in her 60s, greeted him with a knowing expression. You're finally here, she said. Finally? As she led him down a long hallway lined with drawings and photos of smiling children, she explained what his wife had done. She didn't just donate money, the woman said. She gave her time. She read to them, helped with their homework, tucked them into bed when they were scared. She stopped at a framed picture on the wall, tapping it gently. She told them stories. About you. His breath hitched. The picture was of his wife, smiling as she held a little boy no older than 5. The child clung to her, his small hands wrapped around her arm, his head resting against her shoulder. There was something familiar about him, something in the shape of his eyes, the way he held himself. The director turned to him. Do you recognize him? His pulse pounded. Should I? She nodded. That's your son. The words crashed over him like a wave, drowning out everything else. His son? His knees nearly buckled. His mind raced back to the final days of his marriage. The long hospital visits. The way she never told him everything. She never wanted you to know while she was alive, the director continued. She thought it would be unfair, to him, to you. But she left it in the will. She wanted you to make the choice yourself. Not because you felt obligated. But because you truly wanted to. His hands trembled. His wife, his dying wife, had carried his child, knowing she wouldn't be around to raise him. And instead of hatred, instead of revenge, she had given him this choice. The will's final clause made sense now. It was never about the money. It was about this. About him. Behind him, his lover scoffed. "This is ridiculous," she spat. "So what, are you supposed to play daddy now? Give up everything for some kid you didn't even know existed?" He looked down the hallway. At the end of it, a boy, his boy, sat at a table, drawing with quiet focus. He was older now, maybe 9 or 10, but he still had that same shape of his eyes, that same look of concentration that once belonged to his mother. A war raged inside him. For years, he had chosen himself. His freedom. His desires. Now, he had to make a choice that wasn't about him. The director gave him one final envelope. "Her last words to you," she said softly. "Before you decide." His lover's voice was sharp and urgent. "If you take him, we're done." He turned the envelope over in his hands. What was he going to choose? Years had passed, but the weight of his past never truly left him. Standing in the quiet of the orphanage's courtyard, he watched as a young man approached, tall, confident, yet carrying the same familiar gaze he had seen all those years ago. His son. No longer a boy, but a grown man. A man who had been raised without him. A man shaped by the love of a mother he had once abandoned. The young man stopped a few feet away, his expression unreadable. "I got your letter," he said simply. The older man nodded, his throat tightening. "I wasn't sure if you'd come." Silence stretched between them. "I almost didn't," his son admitted. "I spent years trying not to think about you." His voice held no anger, only quiet truth. "But then I remembered her." His heart clenched. "She told me once that people make mistakes," the young man continued. "That regret is a prison, but forgiveness, that's a choice." His gaze darkened. "But forgiveness isn't easy." "I don't expect it," the older man said quickly. "I don't deserve it." His son studied him, searching for something. "Then why did you ask me here?" The older man exhaled slowly. "Because I didn't want to be a coward anymore." A flicker of emotion crossed the young man's face. "I spent my whole life running," he admitted. "Running from responsibility, from love, from the people who needed me. And for what? Money? Freedom?" He let out a bitter laugh. "None of it ever mattered." His son's jaw clenched. "I can't change the past," the older man continued, his voice thick with regret. "I can't erase the pain I caused. But if there's anything left I can give, if there's any way I can be part of your life, even if just a little, I want to try." The young man was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "You know, she wrote me a letter too." The older man's breath hitched. "She told me that when I was ready, I should give this to you." His son reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, folded envelope. The paper was old, fragile. The handwriting on the front was unmistakable. His wife's last words. His fingers trembled as he took it. Slowly, he unfolded the letter and read, "I never hated you." That would have been too easy. Instead, I wished for you to understand that love is not about convenience. It's not about beauty, or excitement, or momentary passion. Love is sacrifice. Love is choosing someone, even when it's hard. Even when it hurts. I hope, someday, you learn what that means. A tear slipped down his cheek. His son watched him, waiting. For the first time in decades, the older man felt truly exposed, no wealth, no power, no excuses. Just an aging man, broken by his own mistakes, standing before the only family he had left. His son took a deep breath. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet." He nodded, understanding. "But," the young man hesitated. "I'm willing to see if you've really changed." Hope flickered in his chest.